In this video, we are going to take a brief look at the Ubot Studio software and some of its core features. There are different versions of the software. Depending on what level you purchased, your version may look slightly different or may not have some of the features you will see in this video. Don't worry, if you don't have all the features yet, I'll briefly talk about some of the more advanced features, but just for reference, and you will not need them when you first start out. Let's jump in and create our first script. This is the scripting area, is where you'll place the commands which make up your script. We'll talk more about what commands are in another video. For now, let's just create a simple hello world script. I'm going to go under the flow commands section. I'm going to drag in the alert command into the scripting area. We're just going to type hello world and hit run. And we've already created our first script. This is the web browser. You can interact with the web browser by dragging commands into the scripting area. We're going to visit the Ubot Studio playground, which has some example forms that we can fill out. Just going to choose one. And I'm going to get rid of this hello world. We're going to come under the browser commands. We're going to drag the navigate command in. We're then going to find the type text command. We're going to type some text into this box. And now when I press run, our commands are interacting with the web browser here. First, it's going to navigate to the page. It's then going to type the text in the form. So above the scripting area, we have buttons that will interact with your script. Pressing the run button will start your script. This will run a script in the current tab. The run on schedule is a more advanced feature that will run a custom command or function at a specified time or on a specified schedule. The pause button will pause the script. You'll be able to resume the script by pressing the run button, and the script will resume where it left off. The stop button will completely stop the script. When you press run again, the script will start from the beginning. Note that the stop command only stops the script and it does not reset any data. The step button will run each command one by one, pausing between each. This is primarily used for debugging purposes. Let's go ahead and click that. And as you can see, it automatically paused our script. On this first command, you can see that there's this purple highlight around the node. If we press stop, it will completely stop the script. If we press step again, it will start from the beginning because we completely stopped the script. However, if we press step the first time and then we press step again, it will now go to the second command. So it allows you to run each command individually, which can help with debugging. The start recording button will record some browser actions such as clicking and form filling. So if I get rid of these commands and I click this button, we can now start to click in fields. And when I change the field, you can see that it automatically creates the command for us. And I can also click on a button and it will automatically fill that in. You can then press the stop recording button and it will stop recording. I can now drag navigate command back in, press run, and it will go to the page and then fill in the form. In Ubot, scripts can be separated and organized by using tabs. So this is a tab. Right now for us it's called Untitled Script. We can right click and either rename the tab or clone the tab. Cloning just creates a copy of it. As you can see here, we have the same commands. I can hit the X button to delete the tab. I'm going to rename this to be main. We can click the plus button to add another tab. Let's say second tab. And I'm going to drag in an alert into this tab and say second tab. Over here, these 3 lines on the button will display all tabs in the menu. You can click on this and switch between tabs if you have a lot of tabs. I'm going to get rid of all of the commands in the main tab and just drag in an alert that says main tab. We now have an alert in the first tab that says main tab. We have an alert in the second tab that says second tab. Now when I press the run button, in the main tab, it runs only the main script. If I hit OK, you can see now that I can press the run button again, and we only see the main tab alert. If I move to the second tab and press the run button, we can see that only this tab is now running. So earlier, recall that we talked about the run button, and I mentioned it would run the script in the current tab. So that's what's going on here. It's only running the script in the current tab. While pressing the run button will only run the script in that tab, you can actually call custom commands or functions from other tabs. This is a more advanced topic and it's beyond the scope of this video, but I do want to mention it for reference. Moving on, let's talk about the toolbox and the bot bank. The toolbox is the area on the left-hand side of the screen here. The toolbox is where most of your commands and functions will be. On the top, we have a section called commands, and under that we have subsections, such as browser commands, flow commands, log commands, and so on. Each subsection contains commands which can be dragged into the scripting area. So I can expand a subsection and drag commands out into the scripting area. Underneath the commands, we have a parameters section. Like the commands, it also has subsections, such as qualifier functions, math functions, time functions, and so on. In each subsection, there are functions which can be used with the commands. We will talk more in depth about this in another video. For now, just know this is where the functions are. There's one more thing you need to know about the parameters section. It houses all of your variables, lists, and tables. These are the 3 main data types in Ubot Studio, and we are going to explore them in great detail during this course. The toolbox is the main feature we'll be using throughout this course. However, there is also another feature called the bot bank, which has extra commands and functions. You can access the bot bank by clicking on the globe icon. The bot bank houses various scripts, as well as extra commands and functions. In order to use this section, you must be subscribed to updates. The bot bank is mostly for more advanced users. For now, just know that it is here, and to change back to the toolbox, you can just click on the wrench icon. Next to the toolbox icon, we have a text box that says Search Toolbox. This is one of the best features of Ubot Studio, and it allows for rapid development. Search Toolbox will allow you to quickly access commands and functions which are generally buried in a subsection. So if I wanted to find this alert command, I would have to know that it's located under the flow commands and at the very bottom. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of sections and subsections. And when you start to add in plugins, there's going to be a lot more sections and there's going to be a lot more commands and functions you're working with. And it's really hard to keep track of where everything is. So you can use the search toolbox, text box, in order to find things a lot quicker and easier if you know the name of them. As you can see, all I had to do was type in AL and the alert comes up and I can drag it in. This allows you to code a lot faster, especially when you use the shortcut, which is Control E. So now I don't even have to drag my mouse over at first in order to click on the text box. I just hit Control E and I start typing. I can then drag this over. I can then maybe drag a function in, and you can see how that goes very quickly when I do that. All right, we have already covered most of the important things you need to know when first starting out. Now we will go over the menu items, and I'll point out what is important to know about today and briefly describe some of the more advanced features that Ubot Studio has as well. Under File, you can create a new file or open a Ubot file or save the current one. You can also save or open project folders, which can be used with Git sites such as GitHub. This is also where you will compile your bots. When you compile a bot, you are turning your project into an application that can run on its own. This means that you can run that application on another computer regardless if it has Ubot Studio installed or not. There are various compilation options, and if you have the developer edition, you'll have several more options, including this installer and all of these options. For now, all you need to know is that you can choose an output file here and press compile. This is all you need to compile a program. Under the edit menu, we can expand and collapse nodes. And we've already talked about the search toolbox. So what this collapse all nodes means, these are nodes, essentially your commands. And when you select this, it will collapse them down so that their parameters are not showing. You can collapse top level nodes, which if you have something like a loop or a container command, which basically contains other commands, you can just collapse the top level instead of all of the nodes inside of it. You can collapse all nodes, which literally just takes all the commands and shrinks them down like this. And then you can expand all nodes as well. This is going to be more useful later on when you're making larger scripts and you need to find a specific command. Under the View menu, we have several features. Here's another place to switch between the bot bank and the toolbox, as well as the code view. So we can switch to the bot bank, the toolbox. This is one way to switch to code view. This is something that is a pro and developer or professional and developer feature only. But don't worry about that if you're just starting out. I will briefly cover each of these items and then we will cover the debugger last. The RegX Editor allows you to build regular expressions and visually see the matches. And if you don't know what RegX is, don't worry about it. But if you do, I'll show you a brief example. You can enter in your text here and your regex up here. So you can do regular expressions such as that, and you can see it tells you the matches. You can navigate through the matches and it will highlight them. Get rid of that, it will change to 4 and it will highlight each individual number. You can also select from the menu over here and it will tell you a description, what the pattern is. If you double click it, it will add that. If you double click another one, it will continue to add on to them. So this is a more advanced feature that you won't really need now, but just wanted to cover it briefly. Here is the UI editor. This is another way to get UI controls into Ubot. You can drag and drop various controls, and then depending on your version, you have access to all of these different parameters. So it's a quick and easy way to create a better looking UI than what would normally come from the UI commands in Ubot. And I'm just going to hit cancel for now. We have the scheduler, which allows you to schedule custom commands or functions, and you can set them to run in the future one time, or if you have multiple times and you want it to run on schedule, you can have it run every minute or every day or every hour and so on and so forth. Once you set up your schedule here, you would press OK, and I'll just show you what this looks like. You would select from here this event. This is where you would select a custom command or function. You can set the date and time. You can choose repeat and minutes, hours, days, weeks, frequency. You just enter a number there and you would hit OK. And then what you would do is hit run on schedule, and it would basically just wait until the next scheduled time, and then it would start running. We have the RegX Editor next. This is where you can enter in some text. That you want to spin. And you can click on the Spin Text tab, and you can just select each word. And if there's any synonyms for it, they will show up here. And then you just double click and it automatically creates the spin text for you. And I'm just going to click on some random ones. This isn't going to make sense, but I'm just going to show you a brief example of how this works. You can select your synonyms, and once you've done that, you can come back to the article and you can hit spin. And you can see that the highlighted words will change. And you can click on it, on a highlighted word, and it'll show you the synonyms. And you can just copy this into the spin function when you're ready to use it. And it uses the standard spin text that every program basically uses. Next, we have the web inspector. This is essentially it's Chrome DevTools. Right now, Ubot's using the Chrome browser, and this is just Chrome DevTools that you get. So if you're familiar with this and you know how this works, then there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. If you're not, don't worry about it right now. That's a really advanced topic, and we're not going to cover it in this video. We have the Ubot Council. The Ubot Council is a way to add extra functionality through commands and functions by writing Python scripts. It is an alternative way to make plugins, but at the time of this video, it's not fully developed. So I'm just telling you what it is, just because it's been a curiosity for a lot of people, and because it's not fully developed and there's not too much info on it, people just want to know what it is. So that's what it is. It allows you to write Python scripts, and you can create extra commands and functions. But like I said, it's not currently fully developed, so we're not going to cover that. And finally, we have the debugger, which is going to be the most important feature or tool under the menu, under the view menu. You can access the debugger by clicking View Debugger. Alternatively, you can hit Control D on your keyboard. Now, what the debugger allows you to do is see data that's been set inside of Ubot Studio. So you can see the variables, the lists, and the tables. So I'm just going to put var and say value. I'm going to hit run. And as you can see, we now see the value, which maybe isn't the best name for it. I'll just put my name in there and hit run. There we go. So our variable is named var, and the value is Nick. This is how you see data within Ubot Studio. That's been set. So again, that's Control D to bring that up, or you can hit View Debugger. This is one of the most important tools. You'll be using this all the time, so it's very important to know how to get to it. And I think telling you this up front in the first video so that you know what it is, it's very important to cover. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. Like I said, the debugger allows you to see variables, lists, and tables which are currently storing data in Ubot Studio, or even if they're not storing anything, you can still see that it's there. You can click on View and Always on Top, which I have selected. This allows me to interact with the scripting area without this debugger going away. If I uncheck this and I click away, you can see that the debugger goes underneath Ubot's window. So that's an option you may want to consider having. I like having it on personally. When you do have variables, lists, tables, and so on in the debugger, you can click on this icon to sort or to check various ones. So if you want to say show rows with value that contains, and I want to show only variables that contain 1, let's say, and I hit filter, it will do that. Now, this isn't going to be the most useful thing to know day one, but it is a really handy thing to know later on when you have hundreds or more variables and lists and tables in your script and you need to find something. Just know that you can click on this little funnel icon and there are sorting options here. You can also use the debugger here to clear variables and other data types. That's something you can do. And if you ever need to refresh manually for some reason, just click this button. The next menu item we have is the bot menu, and this will bring up the bot properties. What this is a table delimiter. Ubot reads tables just like a CSV file or like a spreadsheet, say just like Excel would. The values are separated by commas. Because this is generally the standard format, you likely will never need to change this, but if for some reason you need it to be something other than a comma, you can come in here and change it. Moving on, we have the Tools menu, which contains some useful items. The CAPTCHA service accounts window will allow you to connect various CAPTCHA services. When a service is enabled, you can use the solve CAPTCHA function and the CAPTCHA will automatically be sent to the service you choose. If you have no services chosen, a pop-up will show the CAPTCHA so you can manually solve it. If I click on the Add button, we can choose one of these. Let's say I had an account at Death by CAPTCHA. I can put in, my user and name and password, hit OK. It's going to automatically check the balance. In this case, it's not real information. And so we get an error here. If I had this checked and everything was good there, if we had a service checked, we could have it automatically send this CAPTCHA out, but because I don't have any services hooked up right now, I'm just going to uncheck this and I'll show you what happens when you don't have any checked. I'm going to use the type text command and I'm going to select the text box where we would normally want to put the CAPTCHA in. And then I'm going to use a function called solve caption. I'm going to type this in to the search text box area because it's just faster. I'm then going to select this image and hit OK. And you don't really need to know what I'm doing exactly right now. I'm just showing you an example of what happens with the CAPTCHAs. So it will take this CAPTCHA and display it because we don't have any services selected. If I had a service selected, you wouldn't see this window and it would automatically send out the CAPTCHA to the service. But in this case, because we have no services selected, I can just type it in, hit enter, and it types it in there for us. So that's a little bit about CAPTCHAs. Moving on, let's look at the plugins. So the plugin window is where you can add or remove plugins. When a plugin needs to be updated manually, you can remove it here first and then add a new version. So if I had this plugin that I wanted to remove because there was an update and it was the next version, I could click on remove and then I can click on add and I can add the newer version of the plugin. This is also where you just add plugins that you have purchased or downloaded. And to do that, you would just hit the add button and you'd select the DLL file. When you want to enable a plugin, I'm going to enable this advanced systems plugin and hit OK. I want you to watch this area so that you can see what happens. And as you can see, we have all of these new sections, subsections called Apache, file folder, system commands, and so on, and same with down here. And all of these now have extra commands that don't come with Ubot Studio, but Hash, a plugin developer, developed this plugin, and I bought it because it's very useful in some cases. So this is what a plugin does. Plugins extend the functionality of Ubot Studio. They basically add commands and functions that you can use within Ubot Studio. I'm going to go back into the plugins menu now, and I'm going to disable that plugin by unchecking it and hitting OK. And as you can see, all of those extra commands and functions are now gone. Finally, we have the options window. This is where you can change the browser, which currently we have Chrome 49, Chrome 21. If I wanted to change to Chrome 21, I would select that, I would hit OK, and then I would have to restart Ubot Studio. So that would involve exiting here or clicking the X button up there and completely closing Ubot Studio and then restarting it. It even says right here, requires software restart. And sometimes people miss that. So if you do want to change the browser for some reason, be sure that you change it. Make sure you save your work first, of course, and then close Ubot, and then you can reopen it, and it will load up the new browser or the other browser that you want to use. The help menu contains a script reference, which will take you to the Ubot Studio wiki. This can be a good way to look up commands and functions when you need to know how to use them. The tutorials item will open up Ubot's tutorials. The forum is a great resource, and the community will always try to lend a helping hand when they can. If you ever get stuck, feel free to head over to the forum and ask a question. And finally, you can use the check for updates item to see the changelog and also ensure your version's up to date. This concludes the overview of Ubot Studio. I know we covered a lot in this video, and the reason for that is so that you can come back at any time and use it as a reference. From here, we will talk more about what commands and functions are, data types, and more. I'll see you in the next video.